house felt wrong without a leaner. Not quiet, not empty, but hollow in a way that pressed on the chest. Jonathan Hale stood by the tall oak-framed window of what used to be his study, watching late-season leaves skid across the perfectly trimmed lawn like restless thoughts he could not settle. It had been 7 months since illness had taken her, 7 months since the rooms of this sprawling 14-room home stopped making sense. Every corner carried the echo of a shared life that no longer had a second voice. He still set 2 cups out some mornings before realizing his mistake. The chime of the doorbell cut through his thoughts, sharp and sudden. Over the intercom came his daughter's voice, bright, almost rehearsed in its warmth. "Dad, it's us." When Jonathan opened the door, Amelia stood beside her husband, Victor, both wearing expressions that looked practiced rather than spontaneous. Amelia's copper-colored hair glowed in the afternoon light, and for a fleeting second Jonathan thought of a leaner, then wondered if that resemblance had always been more wish than truth. Amelia wrapped her arms around him, holding a fraction too long. "We've been worried sick about you," she said softly. "You shouldn't be alone in a place this big." Victor followed with a firm handshake, his medical satchel hanging from his shoulder. "You look exhausted," he said, voice professional, distant. "When was your last full exam?" It felt less like concern and more like assessment. They did not ease their way back into his life. They swept in, decisive and organized, like rescuers who had already decided what saving him would look like. Amelia claimed the kitchen, reorganizing cabinets, planning meals, insisting on cooking everything herself. Victor announced weekly health evaluations, then quietly made them more frequent. Blood pressure readings Jonathan never saw, supplements he did not remember needing. New pills added without clear explanations. They settled into the West Wing, explaining that leaving him alone at night did not feel right. At first, Jonathan felt grateful. The house had sound again. Footsteps, voices, dishes clinking. Amelia brought him herbal tea each morning, sitting beside him as steam curled upward, asking gentle questions about sleep and dreams and aches. But beneath the surface, something felt off. Small things. Amelia's smile sometimes vanished the instant she thought he was not looking, replaced by a flat, calculating look. Victor's manner reminded Jonathan of professionals he had dealt with in hostile negotiations. Polite, precise, already thinking several steps ahead. "Your complexion is poor," Victor said during one visit. "We need to adjust your regimen." Jonathan insisted he felt fine, though even as he spoke, doubt crept in. Amelia appeared immediately with the tea. "You have to trust him," she said firmly. "He knows what he's doing." The tea tasted different now, a bitterness beneath the sweetener. When Jonathan mentioned it, Amelia laughed lightly. "Your senses change with age," she said. "It's normal." Age? Jonathan was 74, not fragile. His mind still worked cleanly, sharply, the way it always had. Sharp enough to notice how conversations stopped when he entered a room. Sharp enough to notice Victor's exams growing more invasive even though Jonathan's only real complaint had been loneliness. The house no longer felt warm. It felt observed. One night, unable to sleep, Jonathan woke with his throat dry and realized no water had been left by the bed. Moving quietly through the hallway, he heard Amelia's voice drifting from the kitchen. Low, urgent. Instinct kicked in, the same instinct that had kept him alive through decades of ruthless business deals. He leaned against the wall, heart pounding. "This isn't working fast enough," Amelia whispered into her phone. "He's stronger than you said." A pause. "I don't care what Victor thinks. We need this finished before the fiscal review. The attorneys are already asking questions about items missing from the collection." Jonathan's stomach tightened. Missing items, the porcelain sculpture, the signed lithograph. Amelia had said they were being cleaned. "Relax," Amelia murmured. "It won't take much longer, he's fatting." Jonathan returned to his room on unsteady legs, understanding with terrifying clarity that his daughter had not come home to protect him. From that night on, Jonathan became an actor in his own life. He played the part of a man slipping, slowing, losing focus, while his mind stayed razor-sharp. The physical symptoms escalated. After Victor's injections, dizziness followed within minutes. Amelia's tea left a metallic film on his tongue that water could not erase. His hands shook when she placed documents in front of him, explaining they were routine financial updates. He began hiding a notebook inside a false panel in Alina's old jewelry case, recording patterns with the precision that had built his fortune. Nausea. Injections, vertigo, pills, confusion. Symptoms eased when he avoided meals. Objects vanished. When he asked, Amelia smiled patiently and told him they had already discussed it, watching his face closely for signs of resistance. Victor increased dosages, claiming erratic readings he never displayed. "We need to be proactive," he said. Jonathan agreed aloud while quietly pouring tea into a nearby plant. The plant wilted within days. He learned to hide pills under his tongue, discarding them later. The fog lifted. His strength returned. His fear sharpened into resolve. One afternoon, pretending to nap, Jonathan heard them arguing. Amelia's voice was sharp with frustration. "This is dragging out." Victor responded coldly, warning her about investigations, about appearances, about making it look natural. Amelia scoffed, mocking Jonathan's resilience. Victor assured her the substances he was using would not be detected, only needed more time. She cut him off, mentioning another man growing impatient. The name was unfamiliar. Their argument shifted, revealing cracks in their alliance. Accusations, confessions. Amelia admitted Victor was never meant to be permanent. He was a tool, a means to an end. Jonathan lay still, absorbing the truth. Victor had lost his license. Amelia had a lover, and both believed Jonathan was already halfway gone. That night Jonathan played confusion at dinner, asking about Alina as if she were still alive. Amelia looked pleased, stroking his hand, her voice gentle and false. After they went to bed, Jonathan searched quietly. Victor's revoked credentials, lawsuits, suspensions. He uncovered the other man too, a dealer specializing in estate liquidations. Everything aligned. His daughter was poisoning him while selling his life piece by piece. Jonathan stared at his reflection in the dark screen of his laptop. They thought him weak. They were wrong. He had survived 40 years by understanding one rule: information was leverage. The packages arrived addressed to Alina, which Amelia dismissed as more signs of decline. Jonathan installed the equipment during nights when they believed he wandered without awareness. Tiny cameras, audio capture, cloud backups. Within days he had proof. Victor altering medications, Amelia measuring drops, conversations about timelines and payouts, plans to leave the country. The cruelty stunned him, not because it surprised him, but because it came so easily to her. His own child spoke of his death like a scheduling inconvenience. Jonathan arranged a meeting with his longtime attorney, Samuel Cross, under the pretense of tax planning. Samuel watched the footage in silence, face draining of color. He urged immediate police involvement. Jonathan refused. "Not yet," he said calmly. "I need this airtight." He updated his will, carefully, deliberately. That night Jonathan collected samples of the poison. He accessed Victor's laptop. Weak passwords, clear searches, clear intent. The final confirmation came when Jonathan followed Amelia to a downtown cafe and watched her promise a future built on his grave. By the time the gray morning arrived, Jonathan was ready. He recorded his message with steady hands, outlining everything with brutal clarity. He drank what they thought would kill him on his terms, ensuring the evidence would speak when he could not. He summoned them, told them the truth, watched terror replace confidence. Sirens approached as his strength faded. He pointed. He named them. He closed his eyes knowing the trap had already closed. The aftermath did not unfold quietly. Jonathan Hale's final moments became the center of a storm that tore through every carefully constructed lie Amelia and Victor had relied on. The emergency responders arrived to a scene that contradicted every claim. Amelia screamed in panic. Medical supplies were scattered in plain sight, not hidden but staged, as if Jonathan himself had wanted them seen. The responding paramedic noted Victor's syringe immediately, his practiced hands frozen in hesitation rather than urgency. When questioned, Victor's answers stumbled, overly technical, rehearsed too quickly. Amelia's hysteria rang hollow, rising and falling without rhythm, her grief more performative than real. Law enforcement arrived within minutes, and Jonathan's open phone line, still recording, captured everything. His final accusation, spoken with effort and clarity, carried more weight than any later testimony. By the time he was pronounced dead, the narrative Amelia had prepared collapsed under its own contradictions. The house that had once been a symbol of stability became a crime scene, each room holding fragments of Jonathan's final strategy. The investigation moved swiftly, propelled by the sheer volume of evidence Jonathan had assembled. Samuel Cross released the footage exactly as instructed, ensuring it reached multiple agencies simultaneously. Financial crimes units flagged the unauthorized asset transfers. Medical boards reopened Victor's history, now armed with proof that he had resumed illegal practice under the cover of family care. Amelia's communications revealed timelines, impatience, and motive laid bare in casual messages she never expected anyone else to read. What shocked investigators most was not the poisoning itself, but the patience behind it. Weeks of gradual degradation, carefully calibrated to look like grief and age. Jonathan's decision to accelerate the end forced the truth into the open before Amelia could erase the final traces. His death was tragic, but it was not senseless. It was structured, documented, and devastatingly effective. The will reading took place in Samuel Cross's conference room, a space that had seen hostile negotiations before but never a reckoning like this. Amelia arrived under supervision, her confidence stripped away, her posture rigid with disbelief. Victor sat several seats away, restrained and silent, the arrogance that once defined him replaced by calculation and dread. Representatives from the hospital foundation filled the room alongside investigators and court officials. Distant relatives lingered in the background, drawn by rumors of wealth. Samuel began by honoring Jonathan's instructions precisely. The recorded message played without interruption. Jonathan appeared on-screen calm, composed, unmistakably lucid. He spoke directly not to the room but to Amelia herself, dismantling her justifications piece by piece. He did not rage. He did not plead. He simply named what she had done and what it had cost her. Surveillance clips followed, undeniable and meticulous. Every measured drop, every altered dose, every quiet conversation planning his disappearance. When Jonathan addressed Victor in the recording, his tone hardened. He detailed the revoked license, the prior victims, the arrogance of assuming another elderly man would be easy prey. Victor's medical knowledge, once his shield, was reframed as intent. The room felt smaller as each layer peeled back. Then Jonathan turned to the unnamed dealer, the man who believed distance insulated him from consequence. Transactions flashed on-screen, timestamps and account numbers visible. Authentication fraud. Interstate trafficking, federal attention. By the time Jonathan concluded, no one in the room doubted the outcome. The final clause of the will landed like a physical blow. Amelia inherited nothing. No money, no property, no artifacts. The entire estate transferred to a public institution dedicated to elder protection, bearing Aliner's name. Jonathan had not only denied Amelia the reward she sought, he had ensured her actions would fund protections against people like her. The legal consequences unfolded with brutal efficiency. Amelia faced charges that carried decades of incarceration, compounded by fraud, conspiracy, and abuse of a vulnerable adult. Victor's case was worse. Prosecutors argued his training transformed neglect into intent, ignorance into expertise weaponized. He would never practice medicine again. The dealer attempted to flee but underestimated how thoroughly Jonathan had mapped the web. Extradition followed. Businesses collapsed. Accounts froze. Reputations evaporated. Amelia watched it all unravel from a holding cell, her anger cycling through blame before settling into hollow silence. Every step she had taken believing herself clever had been anticipated. Jonathan had not reacted emotionally. He had responded strategically. Months later, the center opened quietly. No fanfare, no spectacle, just a plaque bearing Aliner Hale's name and a mission statement carved in stone. The funding ensured long-term care, legal advocacy, and monitoring for those at risk of exploitation. Staff were trained using anonymized case studies, though one example remained uncomfortably specific. Jonathan's foresight transformed his loss into protection for thousands he would never meet. The irony was not lost on those who understood the case. A man nearly erased had instead left a structure that would outlast all of them. Amelia read about the opening in a prison bulletin months later. The article was brief, factual, unemotional. She read it repeatedly, searching for something she could twist into justification. There was none. Her father had not acted out of spite. He had acted with purpose. She would age behind concrete walls while the institution bearing her mother's name expanded and evolved. Time, which she once tried to weaponize against Jonathan, now stretched endlessly before her. She had inherited his resilience but none of his legacy, survival without reward, endurance without victory. Victor never spoke publicly again. His defense collapsed under the weight of documentation. Every attempt to deflect responsibility only reinforced intent. In the end, even his legal counsel advised silence. The man who once believed knowledge made him untouchable learned too late that knowledge cuts both ways. The dealer's fate was quieter but no less final. Assets seized, licenses revoked, networks dismantled. He became a footnote in a case defined by patience rather than greed. Jonathan Hale did not live to see the outcome, but he had never needed to. He had trusted systems when he controlled the narrative, not when he was trapped inside it. His final act was not vengeance. It was correction. He removed himself from the equation at the exact moment his presence would have complicated justice. He understood timing as well as he understood people. That understanding outlived him. Those who studied the case later noted something unsettling. Jonathan could have survived had he fled, fought, or exposed them sooner. Instead, he chose certainty over survival, not despair but control. He refused to allow his final chapter to be written by those who saw him as expendable. In doing so, he turned their weapon inward, forcing the truth into daylight. Long after the headlines faded, Jonathan's story remained cited in legal journals and ethics seminars, not as a tragedy but as a warning. Intelligence does not diminish with age. Greed often mistakes patience for weakness, and some people, even at the end of their lives, are still capable of setting traps that close with absolute finality. Jonathan Hale understood that better than anyone.